A past interview with Howard Stern now making headlines. Trump talking about how he had free reign at his beauty pageants.
I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
Hi, friends. Is anyone else sick of seeing this guy's face, hearing his voice? Sick of him being the president? I sort of am. But today we're going to talk about him and men like him just a little bit more. I want to dive into something that's fairly dark, but I think really important. And as I was planning this episode, it's been this real balancing act for me of digging into some gruesome and I think really important details, while also keeping this friendly for a broader audience. And it's been a real challenge for me to know what verbiage to use and how much to share. We're going to be talking about a really sensitive topic here, and I've tried to trim it down to a PG version with a very specific target audience in mind. I was actually just thinking of myself and some of my friends as I wrote this, moms of college-age daughters, of teenage daughters, who I think really need to know some of these red flags to look out for. So I didn't want to make this too shocking or too dark. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these points and turn them into a Substack article where I can explore some of these adult themes just a little bit more as a warning to people out there. So I hope that I'm able to get my point across with what I'm saying, while also not shocking and traumatizing all of you listeners. And I will say, if you are driving around with kids in the car, or your teenagers are just sitting next to you on the couch, put some headphones on, because I don't think that this is necessarily something that younger people should listen to without a lot of adult input. For 24 years, I was married to a man I thought I knew. A dad, a church boy, a provider. He seemed like the ultimate Prince Charming in the beginning. And while that Prince act didn't last for long, like literally it evaporated by the time we said I do, I didn't realize until the very end of our marriage that he was living a double life, 24 years of double life. And when the truth came out, I was shocked and shattered. And then something happened during that process of everything coming out that I still can't wrap my head around or explain. For about 3 months after his double life was blown wide open, right after I found out, before he realized how much he was going to lose, before he realized that he was sharing things with me that I would remember for the rest of both of our lives, he opened up to me. And for that 3 months, it was almost like he was relieved that this secret was out. I was the first person since his childhood that he had ever shared this dark inner world with. And he spilled every secret that he had. Sometimes we would just sit on this huge beanbag, like one of those love sacks in the corner of our master bedroom, watching the snowfall out the window of our high-rise condo. And he would just talk so rapidly, telling me details that I really shouldn't have been hearing because they were so harmful to me. But it was fascinating just watching him really spill all the beans to see what a relief this was to him and how cathartic it was. And I do want to just insert a little warning here that if you ever discover the double life of your partner, this is not something that you should ever attempt to do. He should have been sharing this information with somebody else. I should have only learned just as much as I needed to know, because while he was freeing himself, he was burdening me with things that I don't know if I will ever get over in my life. So yes, if you discover a double life, if you discover adultery, then absolutely learn as many details as you need to know so that you can see exactly what's going on. I gathered all the evidence. I took screenshots and things like that. But don't sit there and be their free therapist, because he crushed my soul with the things that he shared with me. I'm a different person today than I was before finding these things out. They changed me. And in fact, this episode of my life right here is why I do everything that I do. That is where the life take two comes from. It would get so painful that I didn't even think that I could go on. And here I am. And everything that I do is to help warn other people so that I can prevent things like this from happening to other women. So yeah, I was the first person since his childhood that he had shared any of these things with. which you can imagine was extremely traumatizing to me. After these Jake tells all sessions, once he left for his road trip or left for work or whatever, I would sit down in private and take notes on all of the details that he had shared with me. I filled a notebook. This notebook right here. I also took notes from some of my therapy sessions, and some of these are great. When someone shows you who they are, believe them, not when someone tells you. Anyway, great advice. The way he talked to me and the things that he admitted, I wish that I could unhear them. But I think it's time to share some of the things that he shared with me, because we hear names like Jeffrey Epstein, we see what's going on with this whole ring of guys, and we see these headlines and we think, how could anyone do that? Well, I lived with someone who did. And today I want to tell you what I learned from inside the mind of a man like that, from his own words, direct to me.
Ready on the set? Let's try this again.
I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take 2.
I've been hearing for what feels like decades now a staunch debate of whether or not there's a male loneliness epidemic or whose fault it is that there is one. The fact is, there is a male loneliness epidemic, but it is men's fault. 100%. And the reason for this is because so many men, I get it, not all men, not even most men, but enough men have done so much fucked up shit to women that women now, for their own safety, have to assume that all men are dangerous until they get to know them otherwise. You know, treating women like fucking equals, not seeing women as property, not seeing women as objects, seeing women as equals, as human fucking beings. Okay? If you don't look at women like one of you, like a human being, why the fuck would they give you the time of day?
Hello, thanks for watching. I know there's a lot of great stuff out there on YouTube, and it always makes me feel really flattered when you stop on one of my videos. Now, I was thinking today as I was preparing for this video that when people see me on the street, like just in my hometown walking around, I just look like young and happy and naive, and people would not know the stuff that I've gone through in my life, the things that I've dealt with, and the things that I know, the dark secrets inside my brain. But I've been through some things, and today I'm going to share some of these with you. I want to share with you 5 truths about, we're just going to call them creeps to keep this PG. Creeps like my ex-husband, Jake, not his real name, and creeps like Epstein and all the people involved with him, that I think that you should know. For 3 months after I discovered the double life of my ex-husband, Jake, he opened up to me and told me everything, what he had done, how he had done it, and what he was thinking and feeling. Today, I want to share with you some of what he told me so you know the red flags to look out for. And so you know the mind of these monsters. The number one thing that my creepy ex-husband shared with me was that the hunt was the high, and that is a direct quote from his mouth. One day, after his double life was exposed, my ex actually put me in the car and drove me to Salt Lake City and literally showed me the loop on State Street where he used to search for young women. It's like this couple of blocks that I thought that my husband was going to work, but he was actually driving here and spending 6, 8, 10 hours a day driving around. He described it like a sport. How he'd drive around for hours, checking to make sure there wasn't a sting operation, always like looking out for getting trapped. And he explained to me what he'd say if he found a young woman that he was interested in. He explained how if a young woman got in his vehicle, how he'd do a cop check and what signs he looked for that they were legit. And then he told me something that I will never forget. He said the hunt was far more thrilling than the act itself. He talked about even like waking up in the morning, laying in bed beside me, knowing that he was going to go hunting that day. That was his word. The rush, the control, that was the drug. The women, once they got into his car and everything, like that was just the means to an end. That was my first window into how creeps like Epstein operate. It's about the hunt, the domination, the control, and the high that comes from the chase, not the connection and not even the sex. I remember thinking, as he told me about how he met these young women, I'm using in air quotes there to make this PG. I remember thinking, that's a lot of work and that seems really annoying. And as he explained to me that that was the hunt, I mean, think of Epstein and the lengths that he went to traveling around. Like if I'm stuck in rush hour traffic for 5 minutes, I'm losing my mind. He was hunting. It was a happy time for him. Here's like the everyday tip, red flag. If you ever have one of those guys who pursues you really hard and fast, like you know what I'm talking about, right? Like they meet you at the bar and they're all over you. The very controversial Blake Lively movie that blew up in a lawsuit where he pursues her so fast. They're on the roof of the apartments and he's kissing her within like 30 seconds and he's all over her. If you feel like you're being hunted, you are. Young ladies, listen to me. That's not flattering. That's not exciting. That's the sign of a creep. I honestly wish on this point right here that I could share my full notes on this, but it's far too dark and deep for YouTube. Number 2, the easy button. That was a quote from Jake when I asked him about the age of the women that he'd been cheating on me with. Because Jake was between 40 and 50 years old, and these young women were nowhere close to that. So that was one of my biggest questions. Why? And he said it was like hitting the easy button in life. My ex had control issues, like explode because I left my mascara sitting on the counter on my side of the bathroom on my own vanity next to my own sink type of control issues. Everything in our house had to be perfect or he'd lose it. I had to be perfect. Our babies and our dogs had to be perfect. And I asked him when I found out, like, why cheat at all? We had a great life. And yes, everything in the bedroom was good too. I don't know if I just come across as like this cold, frigid prude, but that's the number one question that people ever ask whenever I talk about my husband cheating. That was not a problem, and Jake knew that. But here's what he told me. It's just easy. These women of this age are just easy. And he didn't mean that in a flattering way. He meant they don't argue. They don't have opinions. They don't have real lives yet. They don't even know who they are yet. He chose those specific individuals because he did not want an equal. He wanted someone submissive, young, and easy to dominate. Again, it was all about the control. He could say what time, he could say where. I'm sure once he got with him, he could say and do whatever he wanted. He could dominate. By the way, he had dozens and dozens and dozens of these encounters. According to his estimates, almost 100 over the course of our 24-year marriage, and he didn't ever once cheat with a single grown woman. Like no love affair with my hot best friend or like the other soccer mom next door or one of the crazy Mormon girls from the ward. He wanted someone he could control. That was the whole point. And that's exactly what these creeps are after. Not intimacy, not love. Power, obedience, silence. Did you read 50 Shades of Grey? That's your red flag on this one. If it looks like 50 Shades, run. Just look at what we know publicly of Donald Trump and all these other guys that are implicated in this. These are not men who want to sit down face to face with a woman who is going to assume that she is their equal. They just want the easy button. Number 3 thing that my terrifying ex-husband shared with me, and this was really as we got into the conversations about, like, how could you objectify women in this way? It was horrifying to me. And his answer to that was that they love it. Like, I remember screaming at him one day as he was dumping all of this on me and saying, like, don't you think it's disgusting that you are doing this with women 30 years younger than you? And he exploded and very confidently told me they love it. You should see their faces. They're excited to see me every time. And the thing is, he truly believed that his age made him more experienced, more desirable. He had bought a Mercedes that I would inherit for a little bit in the divorce just to impress the women. He took them shopping. He did things for them. And he really felt like they would prefer to be with him than like some college guy who didn't know anything about anything, didn't know his way around a woman's body. He couldn't imagine for just a moment that maybe, just maybe, these young women were faking it to survive because they needed the rent, because they needed food, because they needed diapers for their babies. And yes, some of them had babies because they had no better option. I mean, you put a woman in that position and she's going to put a smile on her face every time. And to him, this was just another fantasy, but this was so much his reality. Like, I will never forget the passion and the buy-in that he seemed to exhibit when he talked about this point. Like, oh, honey, you don't need to worry about them at all because they were happy. They liked it. And you know what scares me the most about that? That same delusion lives in men like Epstein and in the powerful circles that he ran in. They tell themselves the same story. She wanted it. She liked it. I just did her a favor. Because if they believed the truth, they'd have to feel shame. And men like that don't want to feel shame. And I think that many of them are incapable of ever connecting with shame at all. So the red flag for you in your everyday life, if you are a mom and one of your daughters is dating a guy that has this red flag, if you are a young college girl and you're dating somebody like this, anybody who thinks they're God's gift, if, anything that they do for you is like, yeah, baby, wasn't that amazing? And wasn't that great? Like, mic drop, bam, that's probably the best that you've ever had. That is a huge red flag. This guy is a creep. Run. He should have a black label warning all over him. Number 4 thing that Jake shared with me. He felt nothing. Other than the thrill of the hunt and all of that adrenaline pumping that he talked about, one of the most disturbing things I noticed during these confessions was just how detached he was. And he would go back and forth from just like excitement about the hunt to just flatness. He was able to share things with me that were fairly horrifying, very robotically. Like, he'd talk about these young women like they were a video game. Like the same way that somebody would just talk about an actual video game, that's how he talked about what he did. Like objects, no empathy, no guilt. He wanted what he wanted, and it never crossed his mind that he might be hurting somebody. You cannot fix somebody who feels nothing for people they harm. You just have to, as a society and as an individual, stay as far away from these people as we can and keep an eye on them. That's what makes these creeps so dangerous. They don't need to be violent to do damage. Their indifference is the violence. I keep reading this on all of my channels because it's one of the only things that I still have that's actual written words from Jake. And I just found it like a year and a half ago in an old Rubbermaid box, and it just creeps me out. Like, this is horrifying. So this is my very last Valentine's card from my ex-husband. I love you always. And this was not too long after I found out about his double life. It was after these confessions had started. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm sorry I cheated on you. I lied and deceived. I've withdrawn love our entire lives. You suffer at my hand. I've destroyed your innocent nature. This is Jake. Feel free to screenshot this and read the entire fucking thing. But this part here, I don't feel empathy, which leaves you all alone, insecure, and alone. Ladies, here's the red flag. This is the red flag right here. If you're with somebody and it doesn't look like they're connecting to other people's emotions or like they have emotions of their own, if they don't have awareness of cause and effect, like, oh, I did something that harmed somebody and now they're crying, or I did something that made somebody happy and now they're happy. If they don't have human emotions, then run the fuck away. Don't let your daughters date that guy. The number 5 thing that I learned from my ex-husband, everybody's doing it. I'll never forget this either. We were actually on a hike together. We went on this hike. It was an overnight backpacking hike so that we could get away from our kids so that we could talk about this stuff, right? It was really hard in our little luxury high-rise condo to have these conversations without our children hearing, and our kids were mostly teenagers at that point. So we kept having to go places so that we could talk this stuff out or wait until the kids were in bed. And so we went on an overnight hike one night just so that we could go through some more details and also try to figure out what I was doing with my life. And so we get on this hike. He whips out his phone and he has an article pulled up from maybe the Wall Street Journal or something about adultery and men who cheat, and specifically men who purchase affairs, if you know what I mean. Trying to keep this PG, you guys. And he read this article out loud to me about who cheats and some demographics, 30% of men who do this and 17% of men who do this, and how it was doctors and bishops and lawyers and even politicians who were secretly involved in the same specific lifestyle that Jake was involved in. And I hope we all know what I'm talking about here. And as he was reading this, I will never forget his big ol' hiking backpack and the mountains behind him and the smile on his face. It gave him comfort. Knowing that there were other creeps out there like him made it okay. That's how these men justify it. They look around and instead of being horrified, they say, well, I'm not the only one. And look, he's a doctor and he's a bishop and he's a priest and, he did it too. And that is exactly how men like Epstein build networks of presidents and pastors and priests and princes. They don't just hide in the dark and shame alone in their own bedrooms. They link arms. They protect each other. They normalize it. And there was a red flag in Jake that I saw early on, but I didn't know to recognize this. And that was always finding somebody else who had done something just as bad as him. So he got pulled over for speeding, and it was a criminal speeding ticket one day on the freeway in Arkansas. And he's like, oh yeah, well, haha, did you know that our bishop got pulled over for a criminal speeding ticket? And do you remember when your brother-in-law got pulled over and he was going 5 miles an hour faster than me? He was always looking around for the other people who were doing the same thing so that he could normalize his behavior, whether it was a small thing like that or a big thing like the behavior that we're talking about in this video. That is a huge red flag. And if you see that, run. Anybody who normalizes behavior that's harmful to other people is a creep. Stay far the hell away from them. By the way, I do get comments from people asking why I bring up that my ex-husband was a church boy, or I say a Mormon returned missionary a lot. That's a sentence that I'll string together in my videos. I also point out that Jake was a conservative, church on Sunday, Bible reading family man. People are like, can't you just say my ex-husband Jake? No, it's really important for me to point out who he was. And there are 2 reasons why I do that. First, just because you see someone in church does not mean they aren't a creep. I have been the victim of bad men multiple times in my life, and I have never once, ever in my entire life, ever been the victim of an atheist, a Buddhist, a drag queen, or a bear. Not ever. It's always been churchmen. So don't just have that feeling of, Brother Smith down here at church who's coaching my daughter in volleyball, he's a good man. Oh, hell no, mama. And the number 2 reason why I point out that Jake was, this conservative, church-going, Bible-reading family man is that religion made Jake feel okay about himself. He told me so. I asked him, how do you reconcile going to church every single Sunday? He never missed a Sunday of church. How do you reconcile 24 years of this double life that is so despicable and so disgusting with also waking up at 5:30 in the morning to read the Bible to our kids? How do you reconcile those things? And he told me, he said, Jesus forgave me again and again and again. And he didn't need a therapist either. He only needed God. And honestly, I think that that's one of the reasons why these horrible men are attracted to Christian churches. The whole Jesus died on the cross for you thing really does a lot of people dirty because it absolves them. Jake had a scapegoat. He could go to church on Sundays. He could take the sacrament. He could sit there and cry. He could go talk to the bishop and do a confessional. And he just took those sins off of himself. And then, oh shit, I slipped up again, but God's going to forgive me again. Christianity makes really creepy people feel like they don't actually have to stop doing what they're doing, and like they don't actually have to go out to that person that they harmed and apologize. And no, I don't think that Epstein was a church boy, but there are a lot of people who do things similar to what he did who are. If you'd like to see some of that data, floodlit.org. Charlie over there is a content creator friend of mine and a fellow ex-Mormon, and they keep a database specific to people who have been harmed by the nice guys at church. Sometimes I kind of want to thank Jake, because him sharing all of this stuff with me made me creep proof, because I do look out for those red flags and I can spot a bad guy a million miles away. And I have fairly good accuracy too. I've called it with every one of my daughter's bad boyfriends. And if I had known any of this when I was a young girl, I would have avoided every bad thing in my entire life. And whether these men are just acting on a very small individual level, like my ex-husband Jake was, or running a giant network being like Epstein was, it is never worth it to engage with these men at all. There is no modeling career that's worth it. There's no ring on the finger and $1 million mansion that's worth it. These men will take what they want from anyone around them, and they will just throw you away and toss you in the gutter when they're done like you're a chicken bone. I don't share these things just for shock value. I'm not here to spread fear. I'm here because you deserve to know how these men think. Not the Hollywood version, not just the courtroom version, not just little snippets, the real version. The one I had in my own living room from a man I once loved. Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. Men like him never do. And I hope by sharing this, you'll be better able to spot the signs, to speak up, to protect yourself and the people you love, protect your daughters, because the truth about these men is dark, but silence is darker. Thanks for being here. I love you. I've got you. Let's be there for each other, and I'll see you in the next video.